Denise.
I'm
Hey.
here.
Good morning.
Hey, Liz. How you doing?
Okay.
Good.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily. I'm a reporter with the Washington Post.
Hi there. How are
Hi,
you
Emily.
doing? Thank you. Is Karima on? Is she in yet? We have 42 participants so far.
I see Karima on, she's muted.
Karima, you need to unmute. Karima, you need to unmute yourself if you can.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
There you are. There's your pretty Karima.
Yes.
In the wrong room. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning,
I'll
good
go
morning.
ahead and jump right in. I know we're a bit behind and I want to make sure we have time to hear from our dynamic speakers today. So good morning. I am Karima Woods, Acting Commissioner of the District's Department of Insurance and Securities and Banking. I'm pleased to be able to join you all this morning for our Power Up DC session. I think we just heard from a set of speakers who really set the context for today's conversation, and looking forward to really having a dialogue with our dynamic speakers today. Want to give a special thanks to Mila, Linda, and Angela for their work with the DC Health Benefit Exchange, in particular with Power Up DC, and inviting me to share with you and moderate this conversation on COVID-19 and women-owned small businesses, impacts and solutions. Women-owned businesses in the United States continue to grow at a faster rate than any other demographic. Washington, D.C. has the highest percentage of women-owned businesses relative to men-owned and equally owned businesses at approximately 45%. During this session, you will hear from an impressive array of women about issues women face in owning and operating their business. We heard some of that shared in this morning's session around economic health and well-being, around business model, and the importance of pivoting and focusing and resetting and retooling, recovering as we recalibrate our businesses for this new era that we're in. So today we will discuss the resources and tools for coping during a pandemic and ways to successfully recalibrate in post-COVID-19. A little bit about the Department of Insurance, Securities and Banking. We are a regulatory entity that's charged with overseeing financial services here in the district and educating and empowering district residents on financial matters. DISB has responded to the pandemic in a variety of different ways, thanks to the mayor. But as it relates to small businesses, we have been managing the effects of mortgage relief for district residents through the residential and commercial mortgage deferment program and the DC BizCap program. To learn a little bit more about our work, feel free to visit www.disb.dc.gov. Now, joining me today, we have a whole set of dynamic panelists, Denise Rolark Barnes, the publisher for the Washington Informer newspaper, Margot Dorfman, the CEO for the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce, Sara, the chair of the National Women's Business Council, and Lindy Campbell, business owner for Music on the Hill, who will share their insights on creating resiliency during this unprecedented time. Each panelist have approximately 5 minutes to provide remarks, and then we will follow up with a set of questions and answers. And if we have additional time, we will also take questions from the audience. For those that have questions, feel free to send them via the chat room. With that said, Linda, let me know if we're ready to move forward with hearing from Denise.
We're ready. You got it. You got it.
Well, thank you. Denise, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm ready. I want to thank again Mila and Linda, especially for inviting me to participate on this panel, and Angela, and especially you, Karima, for giving us this great introduction to this session. I think that's really, really important. You know, I'm going to start initially by saying the Washington Informer, and I'm going to take a selfless, whatever, opportunity to show our newspaper, you know, was a newspaper that was started by my dad in 1964. My dad died, the late Dr. Calvin Rolark, and he passed away in 1994, and I took over the paper at that point. And it's interesting because while I worked with him for many years before taking over the newspaper, you know, I always saw us kind of as, looked at us by race, but not by gender. I always saw us as a Black newspaper and not necessarily a woman-owned newspaper. And so that's a shoe, strangely enough, that I'm having a hard time putting my foot into because of, I don't know, I can't even answer why. And maybe Margot will help me to give me that moment of whatever to help me get there. And so, you know, we are, the other thing that I say is that we're a newspaper. And what we were doing before COVID hit was looking at what we called our digital transformation. I mean, we've been in business for 55 years. We have survived all kinds of, you know, issues, but particularly the lack of advertising. But whatever happened over the years, you know, we've still been able to survive. But then, like I said, I looked at us as a newspaper and realized about 2 years ago, we really needed to take this leap into a digital transformation. And that leap was like, you know, putting the camera in slow motion. I mean, I still probably had one foot, you know, on the ground and the other one in the air until COVID hit. And then all of a sudden, you know, we realized that one, we had to reduce our press run. Two, we had to figure out how we were going to continue to not only do the work we needed to do, but how I was going to pay my staff, which, you know, we have a small staff, but I would say pretty large when it comes to small community newspapers. And so the first thing that we did, and I think it was interesting to hear the former speaker talk about collaboration. We were invited into a group of other, and it just strangely enough, other woman-owned Black newspapers across the country who collaborated and with another media organization that helped us to try to get through the early stages of COVID, because we had no idea what this was going to look like. So fortunately, there are a lot of companies out there, Facebook, Google, several that were issuing these significant grants to support small and Black-owned, minority-owned newspapers. And so the first big hit were about 3 grants that we got that helped us specifically with our digital transformation. And when someone gives you some money for something that you have no idea, you know, how you're going to spend it, to be honest, I'm still sitting on it right now because we're trying to figure out what direction we're going to go in. But COVID has forced us to do some really creative things on our side. But then again, it was how would I continue to pay my staff? I had had a printer that I have to, because we print a newspaper, even though we reduced the press run by 2/3. We normally print about 18,000 papers. For several weeks, we were printing only about 6,000. We couldn't find places really to deliver the papers because all of the stores where we would normally take them were closed. And we had news boxes, which due to the demonstrations, many of them have disappeared from downtown DC, so we have no idea where they've been taken. But you know, that meant that we still had to do more on the digital side. So what was a problem created more of an opportunity for us. And so we were fortunate enough to get our the PPP monies. And so it hasn't been as tragic a situation for us as we saw initially. We have since maybe about 6 weeks ago launched something we call Win TV, which is a weekly broadcast on Fridays. It started off on Wednesdays, and we went through a lot of whoever is operating your Zoom meeting today. I wish we had had them 6 weeks ago, but we finally kind of figured it out. And so, and we've had Mila on the show, but we have really, our viewership is growing, and we're looking now at how we can market that product. We've been talking again, like I said, with Facebook and a whole bunch of other digital companies that want to assist publications like ours to remain strong and are providing resources to us at reduced cost. But it's been interesting to work with my 4 fellow women publishers. One's in New York, one's in Atlanta, and 2 are in Houston, Texas. And it's been and actually, for those of you all who know the Black press in DC, we've got the Informer and the Afro, and the publisher of the Afro and I have now, crossed that those burning, the sands that kept us apart. We've met halfway because we both want to see each other survive. We've done that. They are over 100 and some years old. We're 55 years old. We don't want to see either one of us close our doors. So we're finding ways that we can collaborate and work together. So, my staff is working virtually. We have our weekly staff meetings. I come into the office a couple of times a week. And I think for most of us, I don't know anybody on this call who would not say you're working harder now than you did pre-COVID. This is, especially if you're working from home, your feet hit the ground and you're in your office. As soon as you get out of bed, you're in your office, and you don't leave your office until you get back into the bed. But mentally, you're still working. So when Rosie talked about mental health, I think we do need to take some time whenever we can to figure out now how to cut it off and when to cut it back on. And that's something I'm working on right now. And I'll just end there and say thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to taking questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Denise, for the perspective that you bring and the work that you do here in the district. A valuable resource, valuable resource. We're going to move on to our next speaker, which is Margot Dorfman, the CEO for the U.S. the Women's Chamber of Commerce. Margot, it's all yours. Margot, do we have you?
Margot, you need to unmute.
Okay, sorry about that. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Margot Dorfman. I am CEO for the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce. I am going to go ahead, if it's all right, and share a brief overview that I think would be very helpful to kind of give what's happening as we know it today from statistics. First off, the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce is the national economic development organization for women, and we are working.
Margot, I'm sorry, this is Mila. We can't hear you at all. Can you just move closer to your mic?
Oh, I know what's happening. Okay.
We still can't hear you.
Is this any better?
Oh, yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you.
All right. So anyway, just a brief summary of what's happening kind of in the women's business owner space. The U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce is the national economic development organization for women. Our focus is at how do we grow economic status for women and small businesses. I would say our unique differentiator is we are independent and non-captive. There are a lot of organizations in DC that are funded by large corporations or politicos and then cannot work on behalf of their constituents. And we've chosen not to go that way. The U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce works specifically for women and small businesses and acts as the watchdog for accountability and transparency. One of the things that we do is we do a number of reports. This was a report that we came up for the 2012 census data, and you may say, well, that's old. Well, it is, because we're just doing census this year, so we don't have any new statistics, but I doubt that we've had much change over the last few years. So what we took a look at was the businesses by gender, ethnicity, industries, and then also the regions. And then we looked at what were the issues that are impacting our ability to level the playing field and ensure we have one. So when we took a look, we found that women own about 10 million firms. We represent 36% of all US firms. The unfortunate thing is we only receive 4.23% of all revenues, which is a big disparity and an opportunity loss of over $10 trillion annually. 70% of women-owned firms have annual receipts of less than 25,000, and only 10% of women-owned firms have employees. And if you're a non-white woman, you have further challenges. The report gets very detailed, and hopefully you'll see on the, if you go to the link, you can read the whole thing. But I wanted to highlight the District of Columbia. So women-owned firms are about 27,000, which is 42.68% of the firms in the region, and yet the receipts are only at 2.14%. So you can see that the receipts are dramatically lower than even our male-owned small businesses. When you take a look at the numbers regarding size of the firm, women-owned they're only 2.91% of the firms over $1 million. And so you can see where the receipts go higher if you're public and other, but it's still a great disparity from the next smaller group of male-owned firms at 10.15%. So we identified a number of disparities and where we need to focus our attention: access to capital, access to markets, education and resources, affordable childcare, and then of course raise the American incomes. And so I'm very happy that I heard that we're in DC have made some headway with the minimum wage, given that the lower paying jobs happen to be filled with mostly women. And so we want to make sure that there's enough money that women can go out, since we control purchasing power, and help to spur on the economy. In the DC region, there's a hub of opportunity. So the good news is there are ways to move forward, and the conversation has already talked about pivoting. You may have to take a look at what you're doing and do things a little differently, but there's still opportunity. There's federal contracting. The federal government is spending a lot of money now. Also, there are the regional economic development councils, which are represented right here. And if you are a business owner and have not tracked what councils are doing in the region, you should. That's where a lot of opportunities start. You go to some of these boards and they'll be talking on the higher end. Some of the large corporations might say, oh, we want to bring in a division here, move some folks into the space. Or you might have somebody who owns the sports arena and say, hey, I want to put in a new sports arena. Those are where some of the opportunities come from, and you should stay on top of those. And then there's always the state and local purchasing as well. But I think the best thing to do is take action, make sure you're staying connected, engage and follow up. It's those folks who are most successful when they happen to identify where the opportunities are, and they get connected with folks that they maybe either whether partner, go after contracts, but then continue that relationship and engage. When you follow up, make sure to say thank you for the opportunity, but respond when you have that opportunity, and take action to implement whatever it is that you have set forth to do. So we always like to say when we
Margot?
focus, yes?
Margot, if you don't mind, I'm going to stop you right there.
Sure.
I want to make sure that we have a chance to hear from the other two speakers.
Absolutely.
And then you can fold in some of the additional comments towards the end as we have our Q&A session. So
I will absolutely do that. And I want to say thank you again.
absolutely. Great. Next, we will hear from Sara, the chair of the National Women's Business Council.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm delighted to be part of this year's Power Up conference. Last year was my very first participating event for this group. And I always welcome the opportunity to talk about the National Women's Business Council. We're actually a federal agency. Many people have never heard of us, and we're trying to change that, because our mission is very simple and straightforward. We're out there to support women business owners around the country. And if you look at some of the statistics that Margot shared with us, it doesn't paint a very impressive picture of the role that women business owners play in the country, where only 1 million businesses that are owned by women have employees. So we're trying to change that in a number of ways. One, by understanding what are the challenges that women business owners face that we could help solve, so that those businesses are able to hire their very first employee. And then hopefully that will lead to their second employee. So access to capital is an issue. As a small business owner myself, starting my career early in the tech field was paramount to getting our software company off the ground. You need money to hire employees, to hire software developers. And so when we look at the kinds of businesses that women tend to start, unfortunately, they're not doing too many companies in STEM-related fields, be it technology, engineering, manufacturing, science, chemistry, architecture. So that brings us to a second area of focus with the council, is what are the ways that we can engage more women at very early ages, whether it's K through 12 grades, whether it's college, to look at, if they've got entrepreneurial tendencies, other kinds of businesses that are larger than the footprint of their neighborhood. Many of women-owned businesses are those companies that we gravitate to every day. The nail salons, the bakeries, the boutiques. They play an important role in the neighborhoods that we choose to live in. They play an important role in the community, but their impact will never reach beyond that community. And if women-owned businesses want to have a seat at the table at the national level or even the global level, we need to get involved in companies that have those abilities to make an impact, either through job creation, through the development and marketing of products that have broad audiences beyond just our backyard. So the second area is, how do we get more women to start STEM-related companies? And the third area, which we don't see too much as a problem in DC, but certainly there are parts of Maryland and Virginia that are rural. And it's what the challenges are that women business owners face in rural communities that go beyond what we face in being able to be based in large urban centers. When we hosted some roundtables last year in Idaho and Iowa, we had women business owners drive almost 2 hours just to be able to join us at a roundtable to share their stories and their journey in getting their companies started and off the ground. So they don't have the resources, the networking ability that we have by being able to jump in an Uber and in less than 5 minutes, be at a conference, a shared incubator workspace, or even a small regional office for a women's business center that offers free mentoring and guidance. So overcoming those rural challenges is the third area that we're focused on. And as we get into the Q&A, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the detail behind the efforts that we are engaging in access to capital and trying to get women motivated to start companies other than the brick and mortar or the independent contractor type companies that they're currently in. And then how can we help women that are not in urban cities get their companies to be successful ones?
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Liz, for your presentation. Looking forward to diving in some of the key points that you discuss as it relates to women-owned businesses. Our next and final speaker is Lindy Campbell, who is the business owner for Music on the Hill. Lindy, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you so much, Karina. I really appreciate this opportunity. Can everyone hear me, by the way? Okay, good. So I really appreciate this opportunity to be part of this panel, feeling a little intimidated, honestly. I started Music on the Hill 7 years ago, and we, you know, just a little background, we give music lessons, we sell guitars, as you can see behind me. And, you know, right now we're a good little neighborhood boutique, but there's the potential to grow that as time goes on. And I'm from a small town in rural New York, so Liz, I really felt what you said about the challenges in rural America. So I was asked to be on this panel largely to tell the story of what I did in the past few months. So that's what I'm going to do. So I started Music on the Hill 7 years ago. I have 2 full-time employees and 3 part-time employees, and then I have 13 independent contractors. Those independent contractors are my music teachers. So one thing I started to do about a year and a half ago was start this fairly long and slow process of moving my independent contractors as teachers to W-2 employees. And this was largely motivated by the Paid Family Leave Act. I really wanted them to have access to that. But a year ago, 3 of my employees, again, these are teachers with degrees, you know, adults, not kids. They came to me and said, like, you know, we don't have health insurance. Is there a way we can do this quickly? And I said, yes. So I've started the process of moving these private music teachers, which traditionally in the music industry have been independent contractors, self-employed, and making them W-2 employees and therefore getting them access to health insurance through the store. I cannot describe how happy I was to be able to say that every single person associated with Music on the Hill has health insurance right now, either through me or through other, through, you know, spouses or however else they're getting it. So that was a huge thing. And it really wasn't a pivot I made as a result of the virus. It was a thing I did kind of just for moral reasons, you know, in the months going up into this that really worked out. So the big things that we did in March was we had to take all these music lessons, 200 private music lessons that were coming into my store every week, and they had to just go online. And they basically had to go online tomorrow. So I had about 24 hours to figure out, research the program, how's it gonna work, train my people, and basically my teachers got a couple phone calls from me. A few of them I didn't even see in between when I instituted, you know, they came in for their lesson on Friday and I instituted virtual that following Wednesday. And we didn't know that that was the last time I was gonna see them for 6 months. But we've done it, and you know, our retention, we lost about 5% of our students when we switched, which compared to other music stores and other comparable industries was really good. Generally, the loss, it seems, industry-wide has been about 20%. So we were extra fortunate, and my teachers were really, really great about it. So then I had to figure out what to do with my retail business. And you know, when the stay-at-home orders, like, I kind of developed the conclusion that I could come in. And so I kind of reduced my hours. I started opening the store at noon. Because I was homeschooling my son in the morning. So luckily he wanted to start school at 6 a.m. So I did school with my kid. I came in and I took my hourly retail employees and I just salaried them because there was no way to like figure out what they were working, how they were working. It just wasn't worth it. We figured out like a fair, appropriate rate I just salaried them. I'm sure I'm going to keep it that way. I moved a guitar repair bench into the living room of one of my employees. I gave one of my employees all of the social media, and then I did everything here. I answered the phones, I sold the things, took credit cards over the phone, and then I delivered myself. And that's how I got through it. I just did it. I just refused to give up. I didn't reduce a single hour on a single teacher. I just kept them paid. And that was my commitment. I think that that's pretty much it. We were fortunate to get a PPP loan. And I think that that's important to point out. And that helped a lot. So I think that that's my story. I'm happy to answer questions, of course. Thank you, Karina.
Absolutely, and thank you, Lindy, and looking forward to diving in with a few questions about ways in which you continue to recalibrate and rethink about your business moving forward. We have a set of questions, and I'm following some of the activity in the chat room, and looks like there may be some additional questions from the general audience. I want to direct my first question to you, Denise. I think that you bring a very unique perspective as a woman-owned Black newspaper. You touched on some of it, but I'd like for you to expand a bit, particularly as it relates to the public health emergency and the civil unrest that we've been experiencing here in our nation. Can you speak to how has the public health emergency and civil unrest affected the small business community, especially minority and women-owned businesses?
Well, I think with the public health emergency, it took a little while to get that message through in certain communities. I think people, I mean, it still exists where folks just feel as though this is not going to affect them until their favorite restaurant closes or the bar closes or what have you. But I think even in the community where I am over here in Ward 8, it took a while for folks to understand that this is serious. And so, you know, if I understand your question, I mean, our role was to tell the stories of not only the frontline workers, but the people who are particularly impacted, regular everyday folks who, were being infected by the virus and dealing with the virus. That was one. And then also with the unrest, again, just trying to get, which are still ongoing. So it's not, none of these are over. And so we moved from Black Lives Matter Plaza to most recently, you know, Lincoln Park, you know, where there's this push to remove statues. So it's a difficult challenge to tell folks, you know, or to support the idea of activism in the midst of a pandemic. You know, if you're going to demonstrate with 6 feet apart with a mask on. It just is not happening. So, you know, I think for us, it's documenting what's going on, but making sure that organizations, particularly like DC Health Link and others, the messages that all the healthcare providers have that we can either through advertising or just public service messages or using our platforms to make sure that we get the message across that we want our communities to stay safe. And again, and this is still in the midst of 2 communities, Ward 7 and 8, who still lack, you know, a full service hospital. You know, the access to healthcare is still a challenge. And so we can't ignore the realities of communities that are disproportionately impacted, not only by a virus, but by the issues dealing with justice and equity. So, you know, that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what we've been looking at.
Absolutely, and thank you for your response. And no, I think that speaks directly to the question and the challenge right now that we're in these 2 kind of parallel situations that are impacting not only our health and well-being, but also our economic health and well-being. And so thank you for all of what you've just shared. I have another question for you, Liz. You touched on your background in the tech sector and the need to really build up the next generation of STEM leaders and helping women to understand the importance of building businesses that focus on large-scale impact. And your comments intrigued me because of some of my background previously in the Deputy Mayor's office, focused on business development and working with a lot of the entrepreneurs and startups here in the district. Can you speak to any technological trends that you foresee that will help women-owned businesses here in the district?
Well, whether it's in the district or in our community or across the country, I think one of the things that we can all do to support women and their move into creating companies that are technology-based is for them to have the confidence and the role models that they can be successful at it. When I started my first software company back in the early 1990s, excuse me, I had absolutely no background in computer science. In fact, today I have no background in computer science. And I'm very excited about that because I really don't care for computer science. Nothing wrong with it, it's just not for me. And there's this mistaken belief among women that if you're not a software developer or a software engineer, well, then you can't start a technology company. And there could be nothing further from that truth. So when you look at what are the skills necessary for any successful business, it covers a range of things. My experience is all in business and marketing in particular. So back in the early 90s, it was myself as the marketer, my co-founder who was the software guru, and he was the one sitting there coding our software. And then our third co-founder was the money financier. So he was helping us bootstrap. And between the three of us, we had three unique skill sets, all of which were equally important to get a company started and off the ground in technology. And we need to be able to communicate that in a much broader way to women everywhere in the country, that if you're interested in entrepreneurism and you're interested in the impact that technology can have, whether it's on our personal lives and the way we operate our home and family, or whether it's software or technology that will help a company or a nonprofit, then we need women who have been there to step forward to be role models so that the younger generation can understand that they can do it too. And you don't need to be a computer science major or expert.
Thank you, Liz. I've been told we have a very short period of time, 1 minute left. The floor is yours, Margot and Lindy. Any closing thoughts you'd like to share? Particularly as it relates to any challenges facing women business owners.
I'll jump in. I just wanted to congratulate Lindy for being able to do what you've done even before the transition. That's hard at any level. And then, you know, I think my panelists, you know, that I'm with are just wealth of information, and there's a lot to do. And so anything that we can do to support that, we do a lot of work to assist small businesses and listen to what they need. So I just wanted to put that out there, anything we can do to help you to get to the next level. We're all here for you, including DC Health Link. This is very important times that we're in, so you're not alone. We're all here and we're ready to help you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that one other thing I didn't mention earlier is that, you know, I do have a good network of business owner friends in our immediate community, and also I'm very connected with the music industry. And those two things have been invaluable. You know, you can't do it alone. I've made friends, and I didn't realize, as you know, I'm a musician who just opened a store, right? I have no business background. And I didn't realize how important those connections are. And yeah, I can't say enough about them, both local and national. I think having both is really important.
Great, thank you. Actually, I thought we only had a minute, but I've just been told we have until 11:14. So sorry for rushing the last two speakers. I'm managing the phone and I'm managing the chat room and a bunch of different things. And so I do believe we have a few questions from the chat room that I'll take one or two, and then we can close it out to make sure that we end on time. One question that I see here from Klein is, to what degree are small businesses offering apprenticeship programs and/or continued training for staff? Is there anyone that may want to take that question?
Well, I'll start. You know, we had a young person walk in this week and realized we had signed on to the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program, and we have two young people that we're working with this summer, one virtually and the other one who comes in when necessary. So, and she actually is a well, let's say she's a junior, rising junior at Delaware State University. So as an apprentice or as a journalism student, we are going to be utilizing her to, you know, help us with additional content. And then, you know, we're doing so many things right now that we would love to be able to provide, you know, training. And that's why we're partnering with organizations that are outside of the city that are into the digital landscape, who are willing to provide us with training so that we can train others while we're being trained. And maybe that may turn into an employment opportunity. That's what we would hope. So, you know, I would welcome folks to just reach out, you know, give me a call if they have some ideas or some interest. I think it's important right now to really focus on that part of our business, because everybody understands our inability to maybe pay because the resources aren't there, but the training opportunities still exist. So I think that's a good pitch, and I'd welcome to hear from folks.
Excellent, thank you for that. The last question I have, and I think this is a good question, is, and this could be for anyone, are there any thoughts on intergenerational influence or impact, especially when finding a balance between traditional and social media connections, thus providing more meaningful outreach and exchanges with regard to building inclusivity with growth? There was a lot there, but I think that the gist of the question is, are there any thoughts about how to build intergenerational connections as it relates to social media, as it relates to some of these other technological tools that we need to now communicate in this COVID environment? And that question can be for anyone.
I'll jump in really fast. You know, I'm a millennial technically. I still find social media baffling. You know, it is really hard. Nothing makes me feel like I'm just pouring into a black hole than marketing. It's difficult. And I do find that the thing that's been the most effective for me has been, you know, the virtual and kind of new school, but also old school, you know, investing in the local newspaper, you know, is a thing. We buy ads, but then we also do the social media, and we do a lot of in-person events. And honestly, that tends to be the most money for my buck. And I think it's a music store that kind of fits in a way, industry-wise. But yeah, I mean, you can't just put everything virtual. It's just not going to work yet unless you have an entirely virtual business. And having people of multiple generations who understand how this is going to play is really important to have effective marketing.
I'll add to that and suggest that what we've seen in the technology space, since most tech entrepreneurs happen to be in their mid-20s through early 30s, that having experienced advisors and coaches as part of their organization makes a big difference between getting through that very successful first year of getting a company off the ground and failing after the first year without it. So there are many cashed out entrepreneurs who have been in technology that are willing to be mentors for that next generation. And so we encourage very young.
Liz, I apologize for cutting you off. We have a 5-second countdown. I want to thank you all. I hope this conversation can continue. Thank you. And there's more to come with the Power Up DC session. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.